Greetings internet, it's Monica, and today I am so excited because I am going to be talking about all of my big reading plans and hopes for the end of 2020. Cannot believe that we are at the end of the year. That's wild. I both feel like this year has taken 20 years and 20 seconds to get to this moment. Honestly, got lots of complicated feelings about the fact that we are near the end of 2020, and I don't feel like really diving into all of that in this video because I feel like it would be a 2-hour long video if I did. But I am really excited to talk about my reading for the rest of the year. Definitely this year, my reading did not go to plan. I had a Goodreads goal of reading 100 books at the beginning of the year. That's hilarious thinking about that now. I don't even think I broke 50, or at least I doubt I will break 50 by the end of the year, which is fine, you know. Some years are better than others. But I feel like I discovered a lot of new favorites this year, so I am really excited for all of the end of year wrap-ups that'll be coming out, just so I could talk about all of those. But yeah, in this video I'm going to be really looking at how I foresee the rest of 2020 going reading wise, and I'm going to be using the end of the year book tag to do that. This tag was created by Ariel from over at Ariel Bissett. I will be sure to link the 2020 version in the description box below. Before I dive into all of the questions though, I do want to give a big thank you to this video's sponsor, which is Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community where millions come together to take the next step in their creative journey. They offer thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people on topics ranging from illustration to design, photography, video, freelancing, and so much more. I've recently been making more of an effort to journal more consistently again, so Amanda Rachel Lee and Yasmin Cheyenne's courses on journaling for self-discovery and self-care have been so impactful. And Skillshare is curated specifically for learning, meaning there are no ads and they're always launching new premium classes, so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. Plus, it's less than $10 a month with an annual subscription. The first 1,000 people to use my link in the description box below can get their first month of Skillshare for free. So I have all of the questions here on my laptop. So the first one is, are there any books that you started this year that you still need to finish? And I have 3 of these that I'm actually currently in the midst of right now. The first one is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This is a standalone fantasy novel that takes place in a world where magic is like color-based, and I'm honestly not going to be good at ever describing this magic system because it's so different, but that's the best I could do. It's such a funny and beautifully written fantasy though. I am loving it. I'm about a third of the way through it right now and just obsessed. We follow 2 different princesses who are from a very like colorless kingdom. They kind of just avoid the magic system because it goes against their religion, and both of them end up going into this kingdom where it's very like colorful and bright, and they very much so like indulge in all of the magic. And yeah, it's super fascinating. Lots of like fish out of water moments, and I love the world building. I love the characters. It's also hilarious. So yeah, I've been really enjoying this one for sure. Gotta finish that. Then I started the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle back in October and I have not finished it. I need to. I was loving it as far as I got, so I just had to continue and finish this one. I kind of forgot that I didn't finish that one until recently, and I was like, oh right, you need to complete that book. And then These Violent Delights by Chloe Gong. I just recently started this one and am obsessed with it. This one is a 1920s urban fantasy that takes place in Shanghai. It's also inspired by Romeo and Juliet, and it's so good so far. Oh, I love it. And 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle is a murder mystery that takes place in like an old mansion, and the character who dies is like jumping between bodies to figure out who murdered them. So question 2, do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? And this one actually isn't an autumnal book, but it is like a wintry kind of book. And it is The Green Glass House by Kate Milford. This is a middle grade novel, and it's been on my TBR for quite a while because it is set in an old hotel, and it's during like the winter time or Christmas time. All of a sudden, this hotel that this little boy lives at with his family becomes inundated with all these mysterious secretive guests, and he's trying to figure out what's going on, and it sounds just really lovely and cozy and perfect for the winter time / end of year season. So I feel like this has been on my wintertime TBR for the past couple of years ever since I bought it, but my hope is to actually read it this year so it's not on next year's TBR. The next question is there a new release that you're still waiting for? And I didn't think I had an answer for this question, but then I was looking at my to read on Goodreads and realized that there is a book that I'm still very excited for that's coming out this year, and that is The Mermaid from Jeju by Sumi Han. And this is a novel that's set in Korea after World War II. It follows a young girl who comes from a family of deep sea divers. At the beginning of the novel, her mom passes away after doing a really treacherous dive, and so our main character is left to kind of grapple with her grief. She loses her entire family because her siblings also leave to go live with her estranged father, and the book is just really supposed to explore a lot of just what Korea after World War II was like, especially with the sort of influx of US troops that went to Korea after the Japanese occupation. So super excited for that one. That comes out I think sometime in December, and it just sounds amazing, beautiful, really intriguing. I've heard it compared to Pachinko, which is one of my faves, so really excited. The next question is, what are 3 books that you want to read before the end of the year? And I have quite a few books, but here's 3. The first one is Bestiary by K-Ming Chang, and this is supposed to be a very poetic, fantastical, I don't want to call it fantasy, but poetic, fantastical, myth-based story. It follows 3 generations of Taiwanese American women who were haunted by the myths of their homeland. And the novel is really inspired by folk tales, and I don't know, it just sounds magical and truly unlike anything I've ever read before. So I'm really excited for this one. I've heard lovely things about it. It's gotten a ton of praise and buzz, so this is definitely one that I'm hoping to read this year. I also got the audiobook for this one, so I'm excited to read both ways. I'm not gonna wax on about this because I've talked about it so much over the past year. It's The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. Moving on. You've heard me talk about that book so many times. I cannot put you through another synopsis. And lastly, I definitely want to read Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. This author was the author of The Miseducation of Cameron Post, so I have really high expectations. Trying to set those expectations, not too high, but this just sounds so fascinating and different from any book that I've read recently. It's also quite a chunky one, which I always love. Also, I love that this book has a "This Book Belongs To" page. That's so pure. So this novel is a horror comedy centered around a cursed New England boarding school for girls. It's a wickedly whimsical celebration of the art of storytelling, sapphic love, and the rebellious female spirit. So, I mean, do you need to know anything else in order to want to read this one? Because I do not. I feel like as soon as I read that, I was sold, but I was also really interested in this one because it has a lot of like story within story elements from my understanding. There's also lots of footnotes, so that kind of gives me Starless Sea vibes. Starless Sea was one of, if not my absolute favorite book of last year, so anything that gives me that kind of vibe is something I want to read. I feel like I'll really be able to talk to this one in more depth and with more nuance once I actually read it, but I've heard this compared to David Mitchell, On the back, they call it a gothic mischief novel, and that just sounds like everything to me. I'm so excited for this one. So definitely excited, planning on reading this one before the end of the year. And also I have to, because it's also my Patreon book club pick. So I have to read this one before the end of the year. So really excited for that. I'm a little bit behind. I should have already started it by now, but it's been a rough couple of weeks. The next question is, do I think that there is a book that I haven't read yet that could surprise me and be one of my new all-time favorite books? I think honestly everything that I've mentioned in this video could be that for me, but the one that I am most excited for is Plain Bad Heroines. I just feel like if this book delivers on the promise of the summary, I just feel like I will be totally and completely in love with this book. So I'm hopeful that it's this one. We'll see if it is, but yeah, this is the one that I'm putting my bets on. And then the final question for this book tag is, have you started making any plans for your 2021 reading yet? And no, I sure have not. I mean, sort of general plans. I want to continue reading lots of Korean fiction. That's just sort of a lifelong plan for my reading, I feel like. So that's one. I want to finish my novel, the one that I've been writing. Well, one of the ones that I've been writing, that's definitely that's not a reading plan, I guess, but that I feel like is my most important plan. I want to read more, and this is always my goal. I feel like at the end of the year, I'm always like, oh, I wish I had read more, but I'm hoping to do that next year. Other than that, I don't really have any big plans. You know, I feel like 2020 has kind of made planning very difficult, so I'm just not putting any expectations on my reading for next year for the most part, other than I just hope that I can keep reading. There you go, that's my plan. So yeah, that is the end of the year book tag. I would love to know your responses to any of these questions. Let me know in the comments down below. And if you've read any of the books that I mentioned in this video, let me know I'd love to hear your thoughts on them, so let me know those, but please no spoilers. Once again, thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and I'll talk to you all next time. Bye!